This upcoming Shabbos is, of course, Succos, so we'll be discussing the topic of Succos instead of our regular Parsha. It's interesting, the mitzvah of sitting in a sukkah. Now, of course, the mitzvah of sukkah is to eat there, to sleep there, to hang out there. It's to live, make it a habitat for yourself, the sukkah. They ask a question on sukkah. The Gemara says that it has a specific inference from a verse that a stolen sukkah, person who steals a sukkah from another, if he uses that sukkah, he does not fulfill his mitzvah. Now, Tosfos asks a very simple question. The Gemara seems to need some type of inference, some type of limud, something that will tell them that a stolen sukkah is not possible to be the vehicle that a person uses to fulfill his mitzvah obligation. And the question is that we have a principle by all mitzvahs, that anytime a mitzvah is a mitzvah haba ba'avera, that the means of the person fulfilling the mitzvah was through an avera, through a sinful activity, something which Hashem disapproves of, then that mitzvah, that activity that he engaged in is not a mitzvah, and he has not fulfilled his obligation to perform the mitzvah. To give an example, if a person has an obligation to put on tefillin. If a person steals someone else's tefillin, and he puts on that tefillin, he has not fulfilled his obligation. You may ask, well, he put on the tefillin. Well, that's the principle. The principle says that Hashem, the root of every mitzvah is that we're doing Hashem's will. And if the means of your procurement of that mitzvah is a sinful activity, an activity that Hashem disapproves of, then the mitzvah is no longer a mitzvah, because the whole point of a mitzvah is to fulfill God's will. And the means of your fulfilling God's will was through going over God's will, of doing something which is a desecration of God's will. So why by sukkah, though, it seems that we need a specific inference to tell us that you can't fulfill your mitzvah with a stolen sukkah? That's a principle of the entire Torah, so why does it need a specific inference? So the Minchas Chinuch and many other commentators give the classic answer, which is that there are two different types of mitzvahs. And as a whole, this is a good introduction to how to categorize mitzvahs. There are mitzvahs which is called a mitzvah kakafta de gavra. The mitzvah is on the head of the person, meaning that it is my obligation, whatever circumstance and whatever situation it is my obligation to accomplish this mitzvah, to fulfill this mitzvah. There is no circumstance when I am removed from this mitzvah, because it's on my head. It's something that I was told that I have to do. And in that type of circumstance, that is where the principle of mitzvah haba ba'avera applies. That Hashem told me that I must do His will, and the manner in which I must do His will is with this mitzvah. For instance, tefillin. Hashem has told me that I want you to do this. It's mandatory for you to do this, to put on the tefillin. So if the means for my putting on the tefillin was through going against what Hashem wants, then it can't be considered a mitzvah that I'm putting on this tefillin. This is not the case, though, in another category of mitzvahs. That other category is where, in certain situations, you become obligated to do a mitzvah. Meaning, a good example is tzitzis. There's no mitzvah to put on tzitzis. If a person does not wear tzitzis, he's not going against what Hashem wants. Hashem never says, the Torah never says that a person has to wear tzitzis. What it does say is that if you wear a four-cornered garment, if a person is wearing a four-cornered garment, it must have tzitzis. Meaning if you're in this circumstance where you're wearing a four-cornered garment, now you become obligated in the mitzvah. So too a sukkah. A sukkah is not that you have to sit in the sukkah. It's that if you eat, if you sleep, if you hang out, you're supposed to do it in the sukkah. But there's no obligation to be in the sukkah. If a person would neither eat, nor drink, nor sleep, he has no obligation to be in the sukkah. So the sukkah is a circumstance you find yourself in, and when you're in that circumstance, you are now obligated to perform a mitzvah. But otherwise, you're not. Therefore, he says, in that type of case, it's not that you're not fulfilling Hashem's, because the means of performing the mitzvah, you're not fulfilling Hashem's will, therefore it can't be a mitzvah, because you can't say that I'm eating out of the sukkah. Hashem has merely commanded me that when I eat, I should eat in the sukkah. But it's not that I'm going against Hashem's will if it's a stolen sukkah, you would have said, because I am inside the sukkah. It's not that Hashem told me to be in the sukkah, and therefore it can't be considered that I'm doing Hashem's will by sitting in the sukkah because the means was an improper means halachically. It's that Hashem told me that when I eat, I should be in the sukkah. So therefore, you would have thought, without the specific inference, that a person could fulfill his mitzvah with a stolen sukkah. I hope that's clear. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the idea of Pesach, Sukkos, and Shavuos, the sequence. So the Sfas Emes says a very interesting thing, and I wanted you to fill in the blanks. He parallels three different subjects to Sukkos, Shavuos, and Pesach. The sequence is, Pesach, Sukkos, and Shavuos. We say in Shema every day, B'chol levavcha, that a person should serve Hashem with his entire heart, B'chol nafshecha, with your entire soul, B'chol moedecha, with all of your wealth. We say another statement of three, Kina v'ataiva v'kavod, meitziyin es ha'adam min ha'olam. Jealousy, lust, and honor remove a person from this world. They are the primary categories of where all sin stems from. He says these three categories, these three sets, all are paralleling each other, meaning that Pesach is parallel to levavcha, with all your heart, that you serve Hashem with all your heart, which is also parallel to jealousy. He says Sukkos is parallel to with your entire soul, which also parallels lust, and Sukkos is the idea of b'chol moedecha, with all of your wealth, which also parallels honor. Think about how those ideas are connected, and I think that we'll find a very integral, very foundational idea about Sukkos. Have a happy Yom Tov and have a good Shabbos.